So I just came by this video where Matt Walsh was basically talking about how African Americans should be grateful that slavery happened.
In fact, it seems rather clear that Black Americans are doing better here today than they would be had their ancestors generations ago never been brought to these shores. We can prove this point by simply asking which African country anyone asking for reparations would prefer to live in. The answer, of course, is none of them.
This isn't a very smart argument. It's very narrow-minded. People who make this argument don't think of the bigger picture. This argument of his cannot fly because there are a couple of points or factors that he is not putting into consideration. The fact that after our people were taken away, those that were left behind were colonized and enslaved on the continent. Their civilization process was rudely interrupted and forced to come to a halt. Their systems and all they had built were destroyed. A vast majority of their history and evidence of their civilization were stolen and put in museums across Europe. Before colonization across Africa, there were numerous grand cities, empires, kingdoms, and the buildings and architectures that were in these kingdoms and empires were insane. Let's take the Benin Empire, for example. Have you heard of the Great Walls of Benin? The Great Walls of Benin were about 6,000 kilometers in length and consumed 100 times more material than the Great Pyramid of Cheops. It is estimated that it took the Edo people of Benin 150 million hours to dig and construct the Great Wall of Benin. According to estimates by the new scientist Fred Pierce, Benin city walls were at one point 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China. The Guinness Book of Records 1974 edition described the walls of Benin City and its surrounding kingdom as the world's largest earthworks carried out prior to the mechanical era. There are barely any trace of these walls today because during colonization, the colonizers deliberately destroyed the walls of Benin. The city of Benin was destroyed by the British in 1897, and all our ancestors had built was brought to nothingness. Shout out to my Edo people, by the way. As you guys know, I am an Edo girl. Edo is my place of origin. So yeah, this wasn't a hit close to home. This was a hit at home. We also have Great Zimbabwe. She too went through a lot. Her buildings were destroyed. Now all we have are ruins of what the ancestors created. But more unfortunately for Great Zimbabwe and our ancestors from there, the colonizers are presently attributing what's left of what Great Zimbabwe was like to the works of aliens. The ancestors of the Zimbabwean people did this, but they are attributing their hard work, their intelligence, their glory to aliens. They just can't let us have nothing, not even when we are the ones who created it. This reminds me of the Leo Frobenius guy who tried to attribute the glory of Africa to white people. He came to Africa and could not accept the fact that we were as developed as we were when he came, so he came up with this transatlantic theory so he can steal the credit for our civilization and give it to white people. Man was wowed by our civilization but couldn't accept the fact that it was black folks who put together said civilization. I already made a video on this, so if you want to check it out, it's linked down below in the description. It's just crazy how when it comes to African civilization, if they are not trying to take credit for it, they are giving credit to aliens. They are ready to credit anything or anybody for our civilization except our ancestors who pioneered civilization. Mighty shout out to my Zimbabwean brothers and sisters. You guys come from a long line of beautiful, handsome, intelligent, talented, industrious ancestors. I hope you guys are very proud. And we also had the Songhai Empire, Kingdom of Aksum, Kush, Mali Empire, Ghana Empire, the Ethiopian Empire, Ancient Egypt, which at the time of our ancestors was called Kemet. We had the Kingdom of Numidia, Kong Empire, Luba Empire. We also had the Oyo Empire, who, like the present day Edo people or the Benin people, are in present day Nigeria. We had the Kingdom of Numidia. We had the Kong Empire. We had kingdoms, right, and empires, and all of these kingdoms were doing exceptionally well. But no thanks to colonization, the systems that they had going were interrupted. Not only on the continent, across the globe, right, systems were interrupted, and now we have world hunger and world poverty. Pre-colonial Africans didn't have any of these problems. The richest man in history is an African man, King Mansa Musa from Mali. Man was so rich he was gifting gold everywhere he went like it was a 100 naira note or like a dollar bill. Various ethnic groups and cultures also had their own writing system, so they had their alphabet. On the screen right now is an ancient writing system from the southern part of Nigeria, and this writing system is called Nsibidi.
I'm writing my name in Nsibidi, an ancient system of proto-writing that originated along the Cross River area of southern Nigeria. That's a very awful map of Nigeria. The Cross River flows from Cameroon into Nigeria. Nsibidi is indigenous to the Ibibio peoples, the Efik peoples, the Ekoi people, and some Igbo peoples of southern Nigeria, all along that Cross River. That's in present day Akwa Ibom, Cross River, and some parts of Abia and Ebonyi states. Nsibidi was primarily used by the Ekbe secret society, which is also indigenous to that area. As the secret society spread in popularity, so did Nsibidi. What I've written is my name, Ndoka Ebube Dike.
In pre-colonial Africa, we had various writing systems, but colonization happened and the colonizers forced us to abandon our writing systems and pick up theirs instead. Ancient Africa was on another level, so when people like him make this narrow-minded argument, they don't put into consideration the fact that if Africa was left alone, if ancient Africans weren't colonized and enslaved, if their systems weren't interrupted, and their civilization wasn't forced to come to an abrupt halt, if our ancestors were left alone, present-day Africa would not be looking like it looks today. Plus, if the Europeans isn't presently still exploiting Africa, if they didn't have their noses buried deep into our business, if they were giving us space to breathe so we can heal. It wasn't long ago we gained our independence. We need space so we can find our bearing and pick ourselves back up. And this is why I hate these narrow-minded arguments, because they make it seem like we were never doing nothing, and like it's not because of them that Africa looks the way it looks today.
We can prove this point by simply asking which African country anyone asking for reparations would prefer to live in. The answer, of course, is none of them.
And whether or not they want to move down here, it's none of your business. Give them their reparation. What the hell? And African Americans are moving to Africa. This man did not get the memo. There are a good number of African Americans in Ghana. There are African Americans in Kenya. There are African Americans in Tanzania. Maybe a dash in Nigeria. I'm not saying they're moving down here in the millions or anything. I don't know what the numbers are. But a good number of our African American brothers and sisters are moving back to the continent. And there are people who wouldn't want to leave. And that's cool too. Same way if you come to Africa, no matter what you think about Africa, there are some people who are like, I'm never leaving my country. I am never leaving the continent. Me being one of them, by the way. Like, if I am going to move from Nigeria, I am moving to another African country. I'm staying my black ass in Black Africa. And there are millions of others just like me who have never dreamt of moving out of the continent.
I mean, if you go back in time and get rid of slavery from the entire world, you have it's impossible to say what the world looks like right now. Actually, what we can say is that we'd all end up worse. All of us today would be in a worse spot if slavery never existed at all across the entire globe.
Hello, spoiler alert, it's you people that would have been in a worse spot. What the hell do you mean? You guys and only you guys would have been the only ones who would have been in that worse spot that you are speaking of right now. Because you people needed to enslave people to get a leg up. Meaning if you hadn't enslaved them and used them to build yourself up, what you have now, you would not have had it. You guys needed slavery to level up. So when you say we, there's no we. It's you people, you white Europeans, you people from the caves of Caucasus. Like, don't we nothing sitting here justifying slavery, dragging African Americans into the mess, trying to make it seem like, see, they are proof that it was a good thing. No, like the only people who benefited from slavery is you people. Stop talking about the world, dragging the world into this like we globally benefited, dragging African Americans into this insanity he calls having a conversation, using them as spawn to justify slavery. African Americans did not benefit from slavery. Yes, they get to live in America now, the America they built. You didn't build America. Don't make it seem like the America that that we know today were just sitting there and you brought them in to enjoy or something. No, they built America on their backs. Their ancestors built America. So them getting to live in the America that their ancestors built with their blood, sweat, and tears. The America that their ancestors built and did not get payment for. You cannot say that African Americans getting to live in America is the payment they get for the work that their ancestors did for free. Anybody can live in America. That's basic. So don't even say that basic stuff is the payment that the African American people deserve for the works that their ancestors put into America. Here, doing all this mental gymnastics to justify slavery. Biko, pay my people their money, Joe.
Because a change that significant would likely shift the course of events in a way that would mean none of us would even exist.
Okay, first of all, saying you can't complain about slavery because I benefited from it is a wild take on his part. Second, do you think he would use this same line of reasoning when it came to something like... Because the logic equally applies. If you removed every single instance of from all of human history, including when it was inflicted upon children, none of us would be here today. That's an absolute fact. That doesn't mean we shouldn't speak out against it. And to narrow the scope a little bit more, do you think he would say the same thing about the Holocaust? Because a lot of the medical knowledge that we use to save lives today is a direct result of Nazi scientists and doctors conducting experiments that tortured and murdered their Jewish captives. Medical knowledge like developing blood coagulants to stop a fatal hemorrhage, finding ways to effectively treat patients with hypothermia, discovering exactly how much water is in the human body, making procedures to keep passengers and pilots alive at high altitudes, finding treatments for vascular disorder that cause kidney failure. All of this came from the torture and murder conducted on Jews in the Holocaust by Nazi doctors. Do you think he's going to say something like, well, I mean, hey, if the Holocaust hadn't happened, we wouldn't have had... I don't think that's going to happen. Because Matt Walsh doesn't care about reasoning or logical consistency or anything like that. He cares about trivializing the Black American experience in the past as well as the present. He and everyone else at the Daily Wire have essentially made it their mission to say as often as possible, Black people need to stop complaining. In fact, you should be grateful for what you have. And as you saw, they will go to grotesque lengths to try to make that point.
Matt Walsh. The fact that he actually thought he was saying something in this video. But anyways, guys, we've come to the end. Let's continue this conversation down below in the comment section. And of course, as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.